Hello and welcome. You're listening to Start Again with Shauna Lee, the place where you will be reminded that it's never too late and you're never too old to do the damn thing. So stick around if you're ready to vibe higher and be inspired to chase your dreams. Together, we will uncover your soul's truest desires. Now, if you're ready, let's get started. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Start Again with Shauna Lee. Today I have a new friend that I want to introduce you all to. Haley is joining me and I'm going to allow her the opportunity to give you a quick intro, but I just want to begin by saying the universe always works its way into having the right people meet each other. So our story is very interesting in that we're not quite sure exactly how we ended up in the same LinkedIn group, but that's how we met each other, in a group that neither of us really felt like, I don't know how you would describe it. Haley, what would you say?
I don't
It's so
know.
bizarre.
It was very bizarre, but
Yes.
definitely
Well,
one of those things.
I am thrilled that you are here. I am so glad that I got the opportunity to meet you and that we spoke previously. And I am so excited to introduce my audience to you today. So let's start with, first of all, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So let's start with a quick little intro about yourself, where you're coming from. And the first question I like to ask is kind of the springboard for that. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you identify as a Start Again queen.
Okay, so I'm Haley. I'm currently based in Montana, in a little valley called Paradise Valley. It's close to Yellowstone. I recently moved back here about 3 years ago from being in Colorado for almost 12, 13 years. So I'm kind of getting back to my roots. This is where I'm from, Montana. But being a Start Again queen, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this one, my life has taken a 360-degree turn since I left Colorado 3-4 years ago now. And so I would say that my life before moving from Colorado was very different than what it is today. The last year that I lived in Colorado, I had experienced a pretty significant string of losses in my life. And it started with the choice to have an abortion. And following that, really lost my sense of identity of who I was. Following that, I lost my job and I lost my home, all within a span of a year.
That's a lot.
It was a lot. It was so much coming at me at once. And I really had to take kind of a step back and say, what am I doing with my life?
Yep.
Yeah, so that loss, all of those losses and the grief that came up out of that was almost a wake-up call to say there are a lot of things, the way that you're doing life, that isn't going to be sustainable for you moving forward.
Yes. And I think that is the theme that I have heard from many different people coming from a moment after loss where you really do a reflection on how you've been living life to that point. I always try to look at it like now we have an opportunity to choose and do better, which it sounds like from what you've shared with me already, that has been the case for you, and that you have made some massive changes.
Yeah, I definitely have made some massive changes. It wasn't easy.
Yep.
But I think in that grief, wrestling in that grief, being struck by that grief, it, for the first time in my life, it awakened me to being in the present moment. It kind of forced me to be in the present moment. I couldn't numb away what I was feeling, and I couldn't distract with my go-to, which was work I had
Mhm.
really tethered my whole kind of identity to achievements and accomplishments. And I was very successful in my career as a brand strategist working in advertising and marketing. But when grief hit me, I had no energy to overachieve anymore.
Yep.
And I know that might sound strange, but I had no more energy. I couldn't do grief the way that my perfectionist part of me wanted to do grief.
Yep. Totally.
And so, yeah, the changes, it really started with getting really clear and raising my awareness of where all of these defense mechanisms came from, where this perfectionist part of me came from. Um, it really started shifting into, wait a second, I don't want to burn out my life. Like at that
Yeah.
point, I was 30 years old.
Yeah.
I have so much more life to live. And so, yeah, after I don't know, how much do we keep going? Do you want me to just keep going about changes?
Yeah. I do. I want to hear all of it.
Okay, so the changes. Um, Started doing a lot of self-reflection throughout that year, all those losses on top of each other, pulling the curtain back, really slowing down in my life, being a lot more intentional in my life. Um, and it wasn't like I intended to slow down. The grief, honestly, I couldn't get through the amount of pain I was feeling without stillness and slowness,
Yep. Yep.
which was so incredibly uncomfortable for me.
It's interesting because I just saw something, a meme or Instagram post somewhere, I don't know, on the internet, and it was talking about this idea that a lot of us have conditioned ourselves to this constant stress and this go, 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 this overstimulation, um, to the point where rest becomes uncomfortable.
Mm,
And what's interesting to me is that these moments in life that bring us to our knees force us to stop and rest, when in
yeah,
reality, that's what we need.
yeah. Yeah, my nervous system was on overdrive. It was so
Hmm.
overwhelmed. I was so flooded with stress.
Hmm.
But I had to realize I had lived in a state of chronic stress my whole life. That is what
Yep.
perfectionism is. Like
Yes.
I was in fight or flight.
Yep. Exactly. It's so interesting when I have conversations and I'm like, you're really just this real life story of what I just saw on the internet. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So, if you look back at your whole story to
Yeah.
this point, because obviously the next chapter is amazing, right? Like where you go from
Yeah.
here is
Yeah.
so different. But what do you think thus far is the most inspiring part of your story?
I keep going back. I actually keep going back to this part in my own life because it was so inspiring for me. Um, the most inspiring part for me was being willing to say yes to what I call a Hail Mary moment.
Yes.
I mean, my whole world was turned upside down. I was moving back home to Montana to live with my parents because I had nowhere to go.
Yep. Yep.
And I had no job. I had some money in a savings account. And this opportunity had kind of come into my life where I received, it was an email about a 2-year certification program to partner with horses to help people heal from trauma
Hmm.
and conditioning and past wounds or old ways and patterns and behaviors of being.
Yes.
And up until that point, I had been volunteering for a therapeutic riding center. Horses had kind of been a part of my life since I was growing up. And when that moment approached me, it was one of those moments where I didn't have to think. I instinctively knew this is what I'm supposed to do. Like,
I
this
love
is going
that.
to be a part of my next chapter.
Mm-hmm.
And I had no idea how I was going to do it. I
Yeah.
didn't know how I was going to pay for it. The program was starting in 6 months. I had a week to put in my application because I only accepted 14 to 16 students.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said yes to that Hail Mary moment that was given to me.
Yeah.
And it was the most pivotal point in my whole entire life, because it was probably the very first time in a long time that I truly trusted myself and I let my heart lead.
Ah, that is so beautiful.
Yeah.
I want nothing more for every person in this world to get to that point, because that's really what it's all about, is
Yeah.
learning
Leading
how
with
to
your
trust. Yeah.
heart and
Yeah.
just and trusting that if I can feel this good about something that has come into my life, and all I have to do is say yes to it, it literally, up until this point now, when I feel scared to do something, I think back to that moment, like,
Uh,
okay, if this feels good and I say yes, imagine what can unfold following this
yep.
that
Yeah,
I could have never, ever dreamed of.
absolutely. So, on the flip side of that most inspiring aspect, what do you think was the most surprising challenge you faced on this journey, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, the most surprising challenge I faced. The most surprising challenge I faced that in order to follow up on that saying yes moment and step into this, it's basically going back to school almost.
Hmm. Hmm.
I really had to surrender to letting things happen the way that they were meant to happen.
Hmm.
I really had to throw out plans and this sense of control. I couldn't have any control anymore.
Hmm.
And it was
Which for a
really just,
perfectionist is very scary.
it was incredibly scary because I had
Hmm.
no idea what the next steps were. I was so uncomfortable with all the uncertainty that was coming at me,
Hmm.
so much uncertainty. And I didn't realize that I could be that uncomfortable with the unknown.
Hmm.
And so, really surrendering into that feeling, being with that feeling, and allowing myself to settle into it
Hmm.
and say, okay, we're in it now.
Yeah, here we
We're
are.
not getting out of it. Here we are. Be present to what's happening, and everything will eventually align the way it's supposed to.
Hmm. Hmm.
And throughout that 2-year certification program, it aligned in more ways than I could have imagined. I mean, I ended up starting my own marketing and branding agency,
Hmm.
so I could pay for the so I could pay for the program.
Right.
Had no plans of being an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
but I did it, and the clients were coming. It was right during the pandemic.
Yeah.
I was able to help a lot of small business owners pivot in their
Yeah.
own journeys. And then after that certification program, starting my own practice.
Yeah. Well, and you shared this with me previously, so I would love for you to share this with my audience. But tell us a little bit about the certification program, but more about the methodology and what you're doing for your clients now.
Yeah, so the methodology I was trained in is called Equine Gestalt coaching method. And Equine Gestalt, if we break it up, so Gestalt in itself is a form of psychotherapy, and it's a humanistic form of psychotherapy where it's not centered on solely what our minds are telling us and what we think. It's really getting into the body and the somatics and the experiences that we are having. Gestalt, if you translate it, it's a German word that essentially means wholeness. Lots of experiences, stressors in our life, grief, trauma, all of those things can create a disconnection from ourselves. And Gestalt is really the process of bridging us back to accepting and kind of loving all of our parts of self, getting back into alignment with our truth, finishing up the unfinished business in our life from a body sense. And it's all experiential. We don't just talk about what happened. We really get into the body and let the body release the way it naturally wants to release some of those things.
Yep.
Horses show up in such a profound way, because if Gestalt is all about helping us return back to our truth, there's no better being on this planet than horses. Horses live in the present moment. They only care about what we feel. They will always tell us if we're being honest with ourselves or not. Like, you can't lie in front of a 1,500-pound animal. And they're just very non-judgmental. And so I have even my own experiences and clients that have come to see me, all of the guards and all of the shields and all of the protective mechanisms, they magically just drop in front of that horse. And they're really able to sit in their full experience of all of their emotions and let whatever is coming up truly come up and say whatever they need to say, release however they need to release.
Yep.
So it's really a beautiful methodology that has helped me in more ways than talk therapy alone has ever.
I'm such a proponent of talk therapy, but one of the things that I find frustrating about the process is that it can be so slow, and it can be a very drawn out process to get someone to the point where they can talk through to the point where they can release, because that's the whole purpose of healing, right? To feel and release, so that it's not stuck in you any longer, essentially. So based on what you've told me so far, it seems to me that this is a much faster process.
It's definitely a much faster process. I have had a client who, she has done 2 sessions with me now, and it's about 1.5 to 2 hours with the horse in a round pen on free liberty. And she has said to me that in the 12 years that she has been going to talk therapy, she has not released and changed as much as she has in just those 2 sessions with the horse.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's so amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, I have never wanted to go to Montana, but I would love to come and meet you and your horses.
Yes, absolutely. Come on over.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so my next question is one of my favorite questions, because such wisdom comes out of these answers. What advice would you give the younger you?
Advice. Yeah. So one of the things that we've learned in this Gestalt coaching method is that the human soul doesn't want to be advised or fixed or saved. It simply wants to be witnessed exactly as it is.
Yep.
And I know there is a big part of adult Haley that would love to give advice to all of the younger versions of me. But what I think the younger parts of me need more is for me to simply sit with all of these younger versions of me in their experience and give her a hug and tell her that she is loved
Yep.
and that where you're at right now is hard and it's going to get harder. But don't ever lose sight of your heart, because your heart will kind of always lead you back home.
See, I told you, wisdom comes from every answer. That is so beautiful. And you're 100% correct. And that's not just for your individual soul, but every person needs to hear that same thing, because everyone who answers that question, they essentially are saying the same thing.
Mhm.
And it is just amazing that all we really want for ourselves is really all we owe other people as well. Just
Yeah,
to see them and love them and tell them that I'm here and you're okay. It will
I'm
get
not
better
going anywhere. I'm
eventually.
going to be along for the
Yes.
ride with you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
amazing. And you're right. Nobody really wants advice. We do, and yet we don't.
we do if we ask for it. I don't think the younger part of myself, I mean, I hated advice growing up. I was kind of a rebel in that way. I had never listened to anybody. I would always do my own thing.
Yes. Well,
So
the same for
even
me.
younger versions of me isn't going to listen to
That's a
adult
good
version
point.
of me.
That is a
She's
good point.
still going to do her own thing.
I think in using that methodology, I might go back and tell her not to do things that I actually want her to do, because the stubborn side of my personality is, if you
Yeah.
tell me I can't do something or not to do it, that's exactly what I would like to prove you wrong and go do. So I should probably go back and tell her not to do certain things. Oh, I don't think you can do this, just to like light a fire a little bit. But yeah, the direct advice doesn't work. And it's interesting. My second daughter, she is my original mini me. She is literally like looking in the mirror 20 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
She looks just like me. She acts just like I did. And so often I feel like I'm actually advising myself when I'm trying to advise her. And I
Yes.
realize how similar we are. It is a beautiful experience and also highly frustrating. I'm like, wow, that's how I
Yes.
used to be. Okay.
Because you're fully experiencing that younger part of yourself.
Yep. Yep.
You're like, oh, wow.
Oh, wow is right. Yes. But it is amazing. And I tell her all the time, God, I wish I could go back to looking like you do now. Like, just appreciate how beautiful you are and love
Yes.
yourself. And yeah. Okay. So now that we've kind of touched on a little bit of your journey and where you've come from, where are you going from here? What is next for you?
Oh gosh. So many things. So a few years ago, I kind of created this own mantra for myself, which is moving with what moves me.
I love that.
And it has gotten me very far. What is next for me? I have so many dreams and plans that I am putting into action and fulfilling. One of the biggest ones is really ironing out the details on a signature retreat experience in Montana, for women to come to
Yep.
and to create a community around that shared experience. So I am in the process of meeting with a few different guest ranches out here in the valley, to see what we can come up with, and hopefully starting to really offer those in 2024.
I love it.
So that is the big thing. That's what's next for me. But also really what comes along with that is really settling into a space or spaces where I work out of that really embodies the environment I'm wanting to create to do this type of work.
Yeah.
So for seeing private sessions, really finding a facility that I can make my own. So
I
that's
love
kind
it.
of, yeah, that's what's right in front of me right now.
I love it. Okay, so for everyone who's listening and would like to immediately follow along on this journey of yours, how can people find you?
Yeah, so you can find me on my website, www.risingfreeretreats.com. You can also find me on Instagram and Facebook, personal Haley Sevalstad, business Rising Free Retreats.
Love it.
You can always reach out to me via email at Haley at risingfreeretreats.com.
Perfect. I love it.
And
I love
I'm
it.
here in Montana if you want to come and visit me.
I would love to come and visit you, and I'm sure many of my listeners will as well. I will obviously include all of your links in the show notes so that people can pop over and follow along. But thank you for coming on the show today and talking with me and sharing your story.
Thank you so much. It has been a complete honor. And really, I didn't realize this until we sat down today, but today is the first day of Women's History Month.
It is. It is March 1st when we are recording.
It is March 1st when we're recording, and I'm not sure if you know this, but the theme for this year is celebrating women who tell their stories.
I did not know that.
Which is so beautiful.
It is.
It has really helped me come out and be okay with sharing my story and knowing that it could potentially inspire some other souls out there.
It is the reason behind my starting this podcast, actually. And I did not know that was the theme for this year. I love that. I totally can get behind that. I have known for a long time the power in women sharing their stories. And that's why I encourage so many people to come talk to me publicly, because I know the value it provides for other women to hear these stories. And so, and I also know how it builds our confidence the more we share our story and we feel safe to share our story. And beyond feeling safe, we know it adds value to someone else's life. It is just the best. So the fact that I get to participate in the helping of women sharing their stories, I feel honored, and it's one of the most fun things I do.
Yes. Well, thank you for sharing this experience with me, because it's definitely,
your story is inspiring. It is beautiful. It is painful, and it is valuable. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, listen. Are you struggling to find what your true purpose really is? You should try journaling. At the very least, it will get you to a better feeling place than where you are right now. I've created a set of journal prompts to get you on your way to discovering who you truly are and where you want to go from here. My free download is called Journal Yourself to Joy, and it's available at shaunalee.com under Free Stuff. These are my tried and true journal prompts that will raise your energy, increase your positivity, and brighten your day. Download yours today.